Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review The Haunting of Sharon Tate, based on the stories of Sharon Tate's dreams and the Manson family nightmare.
Written and directed by Daniel Farrands, best known for Never Sleep Again, Crystal Lake Memories, and the writer of my least favorite Halloween film, Halloween 6, starring Hilary Duff, Jonathan Bennett, Lydia Hearst, Powell Sadja, and Ryan Cargill. This is an interpretation of Sharon Tate, a pregnant actress who was married to Roman Polanski back in the 60s, who was murdered by the Manson family. This takes place over the last 3 final days of Sharon Tate's life, where she begins having nightmares and dreams about the Manson family coming to kill her and her friends. This is actually a recommendation from Reese Jordan over on Patreon, who we chose for the monthly movie recommendation. I was a big Hilary Duff fan back in the early 2000s with The Perfect Man and Raise Your Voice. I miss that. I would watch those on repeat. I don't know why. But I haven't really heard from her in a long time. So when this came out, I actually did get a screener for it. I just opted not to watch it. So now, here we go. What do we like?
The director of this film shoots a lot of documentaries. You could see that style within this film, and there was nothing wrong with the cinematography. It was well done, it was well produced, and it did a good job making it seem like a reenactment.
But obviously it wasn't, just to clarify. This is not a reenactment. We'll get to that at some point. Very soon. Maybe now, with our dislikes. Despite loving Hilary Duff back in the day, I did not love her in this film.
Well, thanks for that, but I'm not exactly an invalid.
Now, I know Sharon Tate kind of talked a little bit different because she was a very outgoing superstar in the late 60s, and they all kind of had this gusto about them when they spoke. And I think that Hilary Duff, she did kind of play with this accent a little bit.
My love house. I started to feel like I might never see it again.
But the biggest problem with this is that nobody else did, so she felt super out of place for what she was given. And she's just kind of whining a lot, crying, and not really doing too much.
She's not really even doing a good job of the crying and whining. It seemed too fake. And it's hard to feel sorry for you when you're not really doing a good job at it.
Which is problematic as probably an actor as well, trying to take on a role that seems somewhat exploitative, because that's what this movie is. It's very just taking advantage of the Manson family murders as if we haven't heard the story over and over again, but with a new twist to it, I guess.
The fact that they're calling this The Haunting of Sharon Tate, it's not a haunting movie. There's nothing eerie or creepy about it. They have this board game that's a knockoff Ouija board. They try and do the things with the nightmares and the dream sequences, or jump scares with hands creeping through windows. But there's no ghost. If you were to look at this title and knowing what Sharon Tate's story was, you would assume it's her haunting the house that she died in. That would have been my assumption right then and there. The Haunting of Sharon Tate. Because I would assume she's the ghost.
Right, because everybody knows how this story ends. Sharon Tate was murdered. You either know the ending, or they absolutely butcher the ending. What do you think they did? Well, I can tell you right now that they did butcher the ending, and most of this movie, simply because they tried to just make up all this stuff. Nobody knows what happens in Sharon Tate's final moments.
And they had a gun and they had knives and they came here to kill us all.
So it's them trying to put an eerie twist on it. And really, it's more of her just having nightmares of the Manson family surrounding the house and invading the home, and then she wakes up. But after the second nightmare, you're basically oh, okay, so anything that does happen from here on out is just a dream.
What really makes me mad about this is that this is real. The story itself happened to real people, and the idea that they're retelling this and how he shot this film by having them retell fate and almost make it seem as though they're going to survive is insulting to everything that has happened in real life.
The families of the victims are probably super pissed about this. Before you even see this movie, you're oh, this might be refreshing, because every other Manson family film we've seen was from the point of the Manson family themselves and how Charlie kind of brought everybody together. And you're wow, here's one from the victim's perspective, so maybe we're going to get something fresh. Maybe it's going to breathe some life into this and show some light on the victims themselves. And I think they did an okay job towards the beginning with the introductions. And then as you get on with the movie, you realize they try to put this redemption aspect and this like revenge aspect to it. And it's really friggin' weird. It's shown in the trailers that you see Sharon Tate fight back and like kill the Manson family before they can kill her. Obviously, this isn't what happened. I just can't fathom why they thought this might have been a good idea.
Because for all we know, they would have had no idea that the Manson family was stalking them and planning to kill them. But this film makes us believe that every person in this house knew something was up, and they did nothing for 3 days. I don't know what's worse. The fact that this film made it aware that they didn't do anything smart, or that they retold a story of a tragic event. Making Titanic 2. Everyone survives.
It's like trying to paint this whole situation with a better light. It's like, no, it's a tragedy that shouldn't be exploited. But glancing over the IMDb page of the director, he also did the Amityville Murders, and his next movie is also on like Nicole Brown, which are both exploiting real life tragedies. It's a weird path to go. Thinking of the last moments of this movie is really frustrating because like it's like, oh, okay, well, we died, but hey, we were buddies. Let's walk off and we're in a better place now. Don't worry, guys. We got this. We'll go live our last days together in the Hollywood Hills as ghosts. That's fucking weird. That's fucking weird to even say. So how do you even like write and go through with something like this? Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. Not only did I feel this was taking advantage of the 50th anniversary of Sharon Tate's death, I also feel that it was a bad movie in general. I was, however, excited to see Hilary Duff because I haven't seen her in ages and I was curious what she would do. And part of the problem is she still sounds like Lizzie McGuire. You couldn't really take her serious, and you're supposed to take her serious nearly the entire movie. This movie just was not enjoyable as like a horror film, even if it wasn't based on true events, because something would happen, then it's a dream. And that would repeat over and over again to the point where you just don't care anymore. You don't care for the characters. And that's the opposite that should be happening in something that's supposed to breathe life into these victims a little bit. And it had like a bad final act. I don't know. I wasn't into it at all. So I'm going to give this 0.5 hidden messages on a tape recorder out of 5.
What's it saying?
Helter Skelter.
This film is 100% a cash grab. They've taken a real life tragedy and they've retold the story and threw a little twist in there to make it fun. Well, guess what? Tragedies are not fun. The characters themselves, you know what happens and you feel bad for what is about to happen, and they decide to retell it by making the audience think that Sharon Tate and her friends kill the Manson family and survive. That's pretty low. I mean, this isn't the first time something like this has happened, and it definitely won't be the last, but it still doesn't feel right. Putting all that aside, the film itself doesn't give you anything that deems this a good movie. It does have nice cinematography, but that's pretty much it. There's not a good story, there's not good dialogue, and the acting is subpar. And with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 0.5 sexy Speedo boys out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, there are links in the description where you can find it. And if you want the opportunity to recommend a movie for us to review, whether we love it or hate it, check out the Patreon. Links are also in the description. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything Bloodbath and beyond.